Welcome to the archive section with the second half of this interview with Stephen Sindoni. So in this half, we want to get into some of the other things pertaining to the inner Earth and hollow Earth theories and some of the evidence surrounding it. First off, I think I'll relay a story that something that happened to me personally that'll kind of set this thing off. I astral project, and I haven't been able to get back to this same place yet. I've been processing quite a few other things here in the last few months, and my projections have seemed to shut down for a while. But anyways, about 6 months ago, maybe actually it was just before the July conference at the ECETI Ranch. I had projected, and I found myself in a town, and I don't know where this was, but tree-lined streets and wrought iron fences and beautiful, absolutely beautiful place. And I was floating down the street about 3 feet off the ground, floating down the street, and I see this church off to the left, and I took a left, and I floated right up to the main entrance to the church, and I looked up to the top of the steeple, and as I looked up, I fell backwards, and I started sinking through the earth. And I had the sensation of moving. It was an amazing sensation. And I was in a dark area, a completely black area, and I knew I was traveling through the crust of the earth. And then all of a sudden I was in water. And I was in water for just a very brief time, so it couldn't have been that deep. But as soon as I broke the surface of the water, I found myself on the inside of the planet. And I could see on the horizons, I could see what looked like about 20 miles away, a shoreline. And I could see that the interior, the curvature, it was pretty slight from what I was able to see, but you got to consider this is a pretty big place. And up in the center, up in the sky, was an orb that was only half lit. It kind of reminded me of the yin yang symbol, where half was dark and half was light. And that's what I saw for the sun there, the light source, the light and heat source. And I was totally amazed. And at that point, I started freaking out, going, where am I? Where am I? As soon as you do that, it's like the rubber band goes poing, and you slam right back into your body. But that, to me, was validation that there is a hollow Earth.
Well, I'm a firm believer in what you're talking about. Ramon, did you have another story you want to share with before I tell one of mine?
No, not in particular. When I had my out-of-body experience dealing with the hollow earth, I wasn't sure if I was in a hollow earth or another town. But there's a statue here in Japan that's famous. It's called Tenuki, which is like a raccoon kind of, and he's like standing up. And a lot of people have them in their front doors. And before I even knew what that was, when I was living back in New York, I spoke to the statue in what I'm believing now was a city in the hollow earth. And he just gave me warnings, but he wasn't allowed to talk to me. So as soon as he started talking to me and told me about the warnings on the earth, I was pulled back right into my body.
Interesting.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Well, I'm going to share an interesting story with you, and one I've lived through, which is amazing. I told you about the J.C. Brown legend. What I didn't tell you about is when I came out to Shasta last year to look for these doors. Right after I began my search to go out to Dunsmuir, I was lecturing at the college, COS College, and at the stage door in town, and a woman comes up to me after the lecture, and it's about 86-year-old woman. Her name was Laverne, and she said, I need to take you somewhere. I don't know why, but I'm supposed to take you to meet my friend Kenneth. I said, okay. So I gave her my number, and 2 days later, I went with her to meet her friend Kenneth. Now, Kenneth was 86-year-old man as well. So here I am in the seniors club almost, in this old age home facility he lived in. And so she takes me to meet him, introduces me, and she says to Kenneth, do you know who Stephen is? He looks at me. He says, I've been waiting for him. Okay. But you're my brother from Lemuria. So now I'm taken back. I says, well, brother from Lemuria? He goes, yes. I said, well, what was my name? And jokingly, he goes, your name was Randu. He said, you were a shaman in Lemuria, and I was your brother. I said, well, what was your name? You know, he says, well, you promised not to laugh. I says, okay. He says, my name was Kandu. You were Randu, and I was Kandu. So now I said to him, I says, well, that's very interesting. He says, I know you find it hard to believe, but behind you is standing Archangel Michael, Saint Germain, and Adama, the high priest of Telos. I turn behind me. I don't see anything, of course. I'm a 3D guy. I'm going, okay, well, if I don't see it, he goes, they're telling me they know why you're here. He goes, tell me why you're here. So then I tell him about my story. Looks over to his left and he says, let me ask my angels, Edwin and Johnny. Now, I don't see them either. So he talks to them and he says to them, yes, you're on the right track. You will find a physical location. And they're saying, when you do, come back and show me, and I will validate if what you find is correct. So a couple of weeks later, I came back to see him, and I showed him, I created a little YouTube movie and some photos to show him the back doors, which I explained earlier in this first hour of from the legend. After showing him the photos and the video, he turns to his right again, gets validation from his his angels, and he says, yes, you did find one of the entrances, but you're going to find others, but you're going to be going in, but it won't be right now. You need to prepare yourself. You need to do the work. And I'm going, what work? He goes, you need to do more of your spiritual work. He goes, these are not 3D openings. They're in the fifth dimension, something that you need to, be more understanding of. He said, I was very sick last year, and I was close to crossing. And at that time, I was given, the opportunity to cross. And I said, no, I don't want to cross this year. I want to go up into Telos. And he was told by Adama at that time, this was in, I guess, 2008, that he would go in next year, which was last year, and that he'd have to wait until like August or something before it would happen. This was like in June when we were talking. He says, well, I was waiting for you, my brother. We're supposed to go together. Well, right after that, I was like shaking my head. But for the next couple of weeks, I would visit Kenneth at his home, and he would share stories, and we would do prayers and meditation. One day, after reading a prayer, we had our hands on each other's shoulders. He levitated off the ground about 1.5 feet.
Wow.
I then brought him back to the ground, and the person who was in the room with me thought maybe I lost my balance. They lost their balance. They were falling, so I had to bring him down. And when I brought him down to the ground, he said to both of us, thank you, Stephen. He goes, I was levitating. He goes, and thank you for bringing me back to the ground. At that point, the other person in the room realized that, he had left the ground. After that encounter was over, I told the other person, please don't tell anybody what just happened, because this is a special moment which just happened, and I don't want people to get the wrong idea about this. Well, a couple days later, I was going up to Ashland, and I went to go visit Kenneth, and in front of his door, there's all mail that was unopened, 4 days worth of mail, and I go, gee, this is odd. So I went over to a store in town where he had friends, and they told me that he had fell the night before, and he was in Mercy General Hospital there in Shasta. So I said, well, I'm going up to Ashland for the day. You think he'll be all right? I says, well, his chest is a little sore, but, if you're going up for one day, just see him tomorrow. Well, I went up, and the following day I got a phone call that he had just passed away early in the morning. So right after that, I was, a little upset about it, and I went to the bathroom. I was just kind of shaking my head, and next thing you know, I heard him in my ear, says, go out, get your prayer book, go out to the car and get it. And I do, and then at that time, I hear him tell me that he's going to loan me, this is funny, Edwin and Johnny for a week, because he's going to be in angel training, but after that, he's going to be with me. So for a whole week after that, I get woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning by him, and I kept saying, Kenneth, I got to go to sleep. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. After the week, I realized that he was coming through on a regular basis. So here it was, not only did I find, this back door, but I get reunited with someone who's now on the other side and gives me validation that there are things that are happening and other things about, the inner earth, that's coming through now, that what I was told is that the veil is going to be lowered very, very soon, and there'll be more people who are going to be able to receive this information, provided that they continue doing the spiritual work.
Right. That talk about validation, the fact that he saw the same three beings behind you that the Indian guy did in Washington.
And the women.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting. Right after the first Native American in Washington told me that, there was a Drumming for Peace rally that was at the Olympia State Capitol, which was like about a month later, that was held there. And another Native American, two others, one was from the Sioux tribe, and on Saturday, and then later that same day, one from the Algonquin tribe told me the same thing about what they saw around me, verbatim, and neither one of them had talked to the other. So there was the three Native Americans up in Olympia, Washington, and then there was Kenny thereafter, so that made four.
Yeah, well, that's got to be that's really amazing confirmation for you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I tell people, you just never know who the messenger is going to be, and it's like when I was managing a store years back, and people would come in with a product, and they would be just mad because it didn't work. They want to return it, and they're yelling at the salesman. Then they finally asked to speak to the manager, and then they would get me, and I would come to the front of the store, and the customer says, I want to speak to the manager. And then I come up, and I'm not that tall in stature. I'm, soft-spoken. They look at me, and I guess their perception of who the manager wasn't, who I was. And finally I had to say, who are you expecting, Darth Vader? I says, I'm the only one here who can help you. So my point was that there are many times that people don't want to accept who is the chosen spokesman, or who's the person who steps forward to deliver the information or the message.
Oh, I can relate with that.
Yeah. That's definitely.
So these inner earth legends, these things are all over the planet. I mean, every culture has some mythologies or legends about the either coming from inside the earth, or beings that are from the inside of the earth, or it just, when you look into it, it's everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and now these stories are now going to become more and more prominent as the internet has, taken the world by storm. I mean, now, people are going to share some of these unbelievable, legends and stories that have been dormant many, hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go into the North Pole a little bit, because I saw some of your YouTube channels, and you did a really good job explaining it. Let's first start off, I guess, with the birds up there that are really, really strange.
Well,
in the pattern and the fly.
Well, we can talk about the auk birds in that area there. The auk birds fly north, and no explanation why they would fly north, because supposedly it's colder as you go north. But these birds are migrating north, and when they come back, these birds have, if you would dissect one of these birds, you'd find out they were drinking fresh water, they were eating, fresh, fruit and whatever. Where'd they get it from if this is all icy? Now, in that video, at the end of the video, I'm pretty much, it's cause and effect. Okay, how do we prove this? Very easy. I mean, you have a GPS in your car, a tracking device, on your cell phone, whatever. Just track the birds, and monitor them and see where they go, and you'll find out that these birds are going into the open appendages of the earth, which are hollow.
I have to believe that they have been tracked, and that information is just not, it's under that control. So.
Well,
Agreed.
if you look at the airspace, I mean, commercial flights are not allowed to fly over, supposedly the pole openings. They go around it.
The 84th parallel, is it?
Right. Well, after you pass the 84th parallel is when things get strange. I mean, you have Admiral Perry and Byrd and some other of the explorers who went past there. The compasses act crazy. They point downward. They don't give you an actual reading, so it confuses them. And they could be traveling hundreds of miles after that, but instead of going north or south, they're going inward instead of, upward or outward.
Yeah, but, with our GPS technology today, that takes the compass completely out of it. So this is all satellite information. I mean, so why would they make the both the poles off limits? I mean, they even Google Earth. They won't.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
They don't show you the poles.
All right, well, that's got to be a red flag, guys, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, here's the funny thing. I tried to look at Greenland, the North Greenland. I think, what's that called? Barrow?
Yeah, Barrow Island there, yeah.
And there's no, Google won't show that. It's all animated, which I find amazing.
Well, that goes to show you. I mean, what remains hidden remains hidden for a reason. I mean, there's no reason why those areas shouldn't be viewable.
So tell us about F.D. Hatfield.
Okay, you tell me what you want to know about Hatfield.
Well, he was on an expedition, was it?
Right. Mm-hmm, yes.
Was it a North Pole expedition? And
yes.
And what was the information that he brought back?
Well, they had seen, a mountainous, pretty much a tropical type of a setting up there, and after the 84th parallel is what he reported, I believe.
So let's see that some of the more famous Westerner, I suppose, explorers. We've got the ones that have touched on this. We've got Hatfield, and we've got Byrd, and was Bunger's the Antarctic, or was he? Well, he was Antarctic, wasn't he?
He was Antarctic, the South Pole, at the same time that Admiral Byrd was doing his exploration on the North Pole. But he found, islands there right by the South Pole that were tropical as well, Bunger's paradise, if you will. And he reported that, there are strange things happening when you go towards the South Pole as well. Keep in mind, this is one of the things it's always got me to wonder. The icebergs are composed of fresh water. They're not salt water based. I mean, where does this water come from? And the water has to come out of a river, out of the inner earth. And as soon as it hits the colder water, whether it be the North Pole or the South Pole, it freezes and makes a body of ice. But that ice must be salt water based. But how is it fresh water, and how is vegetation in there, from trees and branches or whatever, or even to find animals, prehistoric animals that are preserved as though they were alive yesterday? So, I mean, this has got to give you a red flag as to, how can these things occur in a saltwater ocean? It's impossible. Unless, of course, there is fresh water, unless, of course, there's a river running outside of the earth to create these conditions. I mean, you can go to the North Pole and you've got the aurora borealis, the strange lights, that shows a possible illumination of maybe a secondary sun coming out of this opening to give the strange phenomena appearance over the Alaskan skies.
Stephen, I think we're going to have to go to Greenland and go up the East Coast and just really ask around, because I have a feeling once you get past that the north part of Greenland,
Well, are you familiar with the Lost Colony? For those who are listening, if you'd like to know about the Lost Colony, you can go on YouTube and just Google the Lost Colony. It's a story about Eric the Red, who took people from Greenland up. He was told by the Eskimos that if you went 30 days north of Greenland, you'd find a land of milk and honey where you have hunting, elks, and food. He took everybody from Greenland with him. They traveled 30 days north from Greenland, never to be seen again. And if you go to their museums in their country, they talk about the expedition where all these people just mysteriously disappeared. They found no graves, no remnants of anything of these people. 300 years later, when the people from their country went out to Greenland looking for Eric and their culture. So that's a mystery that's never been explained. Where did they go? And the Indians, the Eskimos, knew that they went further north, and they were told about the land of milk and honey, the warm springs, the warm territories. And if that doesn't sound like a hollow earth, I mean, what does?
Well, the whole hollow earth, the scientific end of the hollow earth theory, I won't say use the word scientific. Let's just say my common sense tells me that you have a planetary body spinning in Earth, spinning in space. There's a thing that I know of called centrifugal force,
right,
which would push everything out. And then you take that and couple it with the Pangea theories, where it was all one planet. Well, I mean, one land mass on this planet that broke up and spread apart. I kind of see it in my mind that we were actually once, this planet, the radius of this planet was much, much smaller, and through the billions of years, that spinning force is forcing the crust of the planet to thin and spread, and that's why you have the continental drift and all that stuff, which would...
You're talking about the growing planet theory, right?
Leave a hollow in the center of the Earth. It just makes common sense to me. And then we have the things like the Apollo mission. I can't remember which one it was. Was it 12 or 7? I can't remember which one where they crashed the booster or whatever the heck it was back into the moon, and the moon rang for 3 hours, and showing that most likely that the moon itself is hollow. So I kind of personally see that it just makes sense to me that any spinning mass like that is going to expand and create a hollow cavity on the interior.
Well, I would not be surprised, or people shouldn't be surprised if they realize that, there are more than the Earth and many other planets are hollow, and that other civilizations might have existed elsewhere as well, within our solar system, and other places as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The legends that I hear, especially the one about Smoky God, is one of my favorite books to read.
Well, I put that up on YouTube. You can hear the narration of the Smoky God. I have it up, I believe, on my YouTube site. But yeah, that's an interesting story by someone who claimed to have spent 2 years, I believe, living with them. Him and his father ended up by boat going north and ended up going into the hollow earth, and they met some of the people who they lived with, and they stayed there. And then after 2 years, he wanted to come back, and they couldn't come back the way that they came to the North Pole, so they had to come to the South Pole, to the rivers that go inside of the earth and navigate to the South Pole. And coming out, the father ended up dying, and he ends up getting picked up by a trawler. And when he told his story, they ended up putting him in an insane asylum, I believe, for almost 30 years before he got out. And so he ended up, yeah.
And then from there he left and went to the States.
Yeah, he ended up living in Los Angeles, and just before he died, he shared this story only to be written then in fear of they would lock him up again and put him away.
Hmm.
So probably one of the most widely known, and at least it was one of the first ones that I came across, was the Admiral Byrd. For those who may be listening who don't know this story, would you briefly run through that?
Well, Admiral Byrd was commissioned by the government to take an expedition to the polar openings north and south. And the reason why they wanted this done, because the Germans, Hitler in particular, believed in a hollow earth, and they wanted to beat the Germans to the hollow earth because the Germans were trying to set up a place called New Swabenland, and they were trying to find out where this continent or island existed. So they were trying to find out, A, what was Hitler doing, going north or south, either South Pole or North Pole, and where was this mysterious place that he had already found. So his job was to go and to find out what was really going on in the North Pole and South Pole. On one of his trips up to the North Pole is where he and his pilot went in to the inner Earth and North Pole, and I think he traveled about 2,300 miles going in there. And what he saw was warm vegetation. He saw trees that were like 10 times the height of the redwoods. He saw animals, prehistoric animals of nature, brontosauruses, things, all sorts of animals that supposedly haven't existed for millions of years on the inner Earth. And he was met by a group of ships who they pulled alongside of his plane, and they ended up taking him, landing him, and claimed that they were the Ariani, and that they were the inhabitants of the inner Earth, and they would take him to meet with the king of the world, I believe is what they called him. And so Admiral Byrd was then taken to meet with this inner Earth king, who gave him a message to bring back to the President of the United States. So here he comes back to the President of the United States to give him the message. And what the message basically was is that they wanted our government to stop with the nuclear testing. They didn't want them to pursue the nuclear because that would be the destruction of the planet, which would also be the destruction of the inner Earth. So they wanted to set up a meeting with the powers that be of our government to let them know that, yes, they exist. They wanted to have treaties or whatever it was. And next thing you know, they sent out ships over, sightings were over Los Angeles, there were sightings over the White House, whatever, and then our government started taking a shot at all these UFO type of vehicles in response to, their goodwill. They were trying to stop the madness at that point. So interesting enough, Byrd, when he came back, share this information on the journey into the North Pole. And this was what was cited by him in his secret diary that years later that was passed on, that only came out years later.
So didn't they the government mounted a big expedition to the South Pole shortly after that, sent a bunch of warships and aircraft carrier and all. I can't remember what it was, 10,000
yes.
men.
With dirigibles that were, designed to be able to get through the ice, so that way they could get to the South Polar opening. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right, and they got their asses handed to them, and they came running back with like the dog with its tail between his legs.
There are very few ships came back from that. Isn't that the
I think that they lost 2 or 3 ships. I can't remember what it was.
Mm.
Well, the interesting thing about that is that during World War II, like 50,000 submarines were like unaccounted for. They don't know what happened to them, where they went. So could very well be that they went to the South Pole, to this new Swabenland, or to the polar openings, and this is why the U.S. was going down there, because it was a secret place that the Nazis had found.
Yeah. The the story just gets more and more amazing the more you start digging into this. Did you have you ever come across Brooks Agnew's stuff?
I saw some of his things. I know some people like James Gilliland and other people who know him, and I've never met him personally. I have friends who know him, but his big thing that I was told was that he wanted to put an expedition together to go up to the North Pole to actually find the opening at the North Pole.
Yeah, and he also traveled around the world looking for evidence of this and stories. And it just seems that the more you look into this, the more you find evidence. But there's a great trying to remember their name. There's a father and son from South Africa, and they have a book called The Land with No Horizon. And they do the whole scientific look into this. And from what I heard in their interview, when they start talking about, I don't know if you're familiar with the shadow zone when you have an earthquake, how it rings still, and that's only possible if it's hollow. If it's solid the way they teach us in school, that wouldn't happen.
Makes you wonder.
Yeah. Yeah, and what gets me frustrated with school is that they teach it as fact when it's only a theory because they've never proven. But if you give them any other theory, they're like, oh no, that's impossible.
Well, that's basically it's suppression of to be a free thinker. When you take away someone's ability to reason and to analyze things, then you're making them robotic, and you're just telling them, you're dumbing them down, actually, is really what you're doing.
Take the creativity away.
Exactly. Once you take the creativity away, it's like you give somebody lined paper. Give somebody, regular sketching paper with crayons, and rather than give them lined paper, because all of a sudden they'll open up their mind, they'll open up their creativity, where the beauty of life will actually come out, and answers will begin to appear. But when you give somebody canned responses, or you tell teachers, for example, this is the curriculum, this is what you're going to teach, you cannot deviate from this path, you have to teach the Darwinism theory, you have to teach this and that, you're not giving people at least a chance to think until they get to high levels of education. And then those professors are tenured, and the last thing they want to do is say anything that upsets the apple cart, because then they won't have a job.
Yeah, they're tenure.
Yeah. I've heard stories where students wanted to do research into the hollow earth, and they would say, now if you want to graduate,
well, there you go.
Now if you want to get your master's.
Well, you have to be, I have a friend who is writes for a major paper who had interviewed me, and he commended me on some of the things I was doing. And he says, you sound like me, like a journalist. And I was kidding around with him. I says, no, the difference is I'm outside of the box. I could say these things that you would get fired for.
What did he say to you?
He laughed. He agreed. He's not going to really, but he's just like, point well taken. But the point is, it's going to take someone who's outside of the box to bring up the tough questions and put it out there for people to think about. I mean, just to ask those questions. What if? The possibility. Right now, we're not getting the possibilities. We're just getting okay, it's black or white, and it fits inside here, and this is what it is, and you have to accept it. We're going to cookie cut this, and every website, everybody's going to have the same information. It's going to be canned, the same response, and you'll accept it. You'll eat it like it's Purina dog chow. Well, you know what? That's not what people need. People need to be given a lot of different, avenues to go down to be able to make, reasonable, assessments and judgments based on the information. And, if you suppress the information, it makes it difficult.
Yeah.
Well, the internet is really opening a lot of doors for a lot of people. And there's so much information out there now that is accessible. Stuff that's been suppressed for a long time.
But also, too, you got to remember, just like you have the National Enquirer, you have people that can tweak the truth and all of a sudden what might sound like it's, really, really good might be just a disinformation group putting stuff out there just to throw you off, the track.
Absolutely. You definitely have to have your discernment mechanism going at all times.
Well,
you gotta look at stuff. Yeah, get Ramon. Yeah.
And I was gonna say, there's a saying I love saying, which is, if I have a room and I have an inch of gold in that room, and then I cover it with 6 inches of crap, nobody's gonna stick their hand in there to look for the gold. So it's the same thing. You wrap the truth with lies, so you don't even know what's true and what's a lie.
Well, that's very true. Hitler once said, "The bigger the lie, the easier to believe."
Yeah.
So, we've got some major stuff that's happened in this country recently in the last decade that defies common sense, but it is, put out there in a way that it is so unbelievable that people say, "All right, I give up, I'll accept it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That or they're so brainwashed by the square tube in the living room that they believe everything that comes out of that thing. Well, and that's all controlled. So.
Well, if you want to tune in, we started this hour talking about spirituality. In order to tune in, you must tune out from all these distractions, we'll call them, that tell you how to think, what to do, when to do it, how to say it. And if you can do that, you can separate that and go within, then that's when you're going to open up the doorway to the answers that you seek, whether you're a researcher, whether you're looking for answers. They will come because you'll be putting it in to your higher self, which will get you what you want just by going within, because you already have the answers. Just like in The Wizard of Oz, where they told Dorothy, you already had it already. Well, we have it already. We just have to go and say, okay, now where do I look? And, because the difference between knowledge and wisdom, guys, is knowing what to do next. You need to know what the process is. Once you establish the process, you can then control the process, because you're the screenwriter. This is the drama of your life. You're the director, producer. You're the one who's controlling this. And if you control it, then you're the one who should say, let's do a timeout. Let me reassess. And if you step out of it and become the conscious observer, the third party, and it's not really happening to you, you're watching it happen, almost like a Zen Buddhist approach, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, this kind of goes right in the direction where I definitely wanted to ask you a question that we ask most of our guests. What is your definition of consciousness, and how does it affect our world?
My definition of consciousness, okay, that's very interesting. A lot of people draw their definition of consciousness based on their religious beliefs, what their parents teach them, and what they learn in churches and organizations. And so initially, when you start out, at least I did in the process, I was a devout Christian at the time, and from my parents, but I realized that I had to cut the umbilical cord when I realized there were things that just didn't make sense in the philosophies that I had been studying and learning.
You mean you're not a devout Christian anymore?
Well, in a different way. I believe. I follow the golden rule, and I think we all should. If we only follow one rule, Ramon, it's treat people the way you want to be treated, and I think we'd solve all the wars.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't hurt yourself. Why would you hurt somebody else? It's a reflection on you. When you do something mean to someone, or say something, whether it's opinionated or you do something, it's really your shadow. It's really you're having a problem, and you're reflecting on another God-like human being, and you need to check yourself at the door when you do that. When you talk about higher consciousness, we are all, I believe, and we're going to be finding out, we're all co-creators with God. And I think that's where our super consciousness comes from this higher presence, which gives us the ability to create the things on this plane that we exist in the 3D and manifest them from this thinking stuff that we put into our minds. And by using that, we're able to create and mold what it is that we put in our consciousness and bring these things back to us, hopefully in a timely manner, and be able to see them manifest in earthly form.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Well said. Well said.
Well, I mean, for example, when you guys wanted to create this TV show, you wanted to host this show, it had to start with a desire, a passion, and an idea. The thinking stuff process took place. You guys molded it. Next thing you know, here we are on Conscious TV. I mean, the same process that it took to create this thing is every creation on Earth. Something thought had to be put out there, and it had to be nurtured. It had to be, done in a way where it could create itself. It just didn't happen just like the Big Bang Theory. Something of intelligent design, I guess that's the word I'm looking for, to create this beautiful world that we live in.
So do you look at it as this being becoming self-aware? The first time it became self-aware was the creation or the beginning of the creation of the universe? Is the becoming of self-aware?
Well, I believe that this omnipresent creator created many, many universes. And I think a lot of the people today have part of it. But one of the things that reincarnation is, something that just popped up for me to talk about, is that let's say, I'll throw a caveat out there. Let's say there were 355 species of human type of beings, different forms that were created all over the universes with the prime intention to coming to a planet near you, maybe Earth and others, to experience the process of reincarnation, to get better in each different reincarnation, to become closer to the Creator. If you looked at our planet, all over the planet, many people have the belief in reincarnation, coming back and so forth, and some people even know, certain things. But if this is true in this process, and this is what the Creator had intended, then this 2012 thing coming up with the elevation of this planet to ascend might show people on this planet who are doing their spiritual work that there is a higher order that is going to take you to a higher elevation of spirituality in your next incarnation, which might take you to a different planet, maybe not Earth, somewhere else, a solar system near you, so to speak, to begin the process all over again. There's a lot of cyclicity on this planet, a lot of cycles that are happening, and things that are just starting to be understood. And the problem is organized religions will not allow you to get any further to be able to understand, the origin of man, so to speak.
Have you read any of the Nag Hammadi stuff, the Sophia mythos, or any of that?
No, I have not. No.
There's some very interesting creation mythologies. This is all from the Gnostic stuff, the Essenes, the mystery school stuff, pre-Judeo-Christian mythologies. There's some very, very enlightening material there.
Well, as people are starting to discover, our civilization might have been designed in a test tube and experiment, and there was a higher intelligence that was responsible for the creation of man as we know it on this planet. And as people realize that and accept that, they'll realize that, that even these people who were the creators of in our DNA, so to speak, are not God. They just tampered with things that they shouldn't have tampered with, so to speak. But there's a creator who's overseeing all of that. But there are other civilizations. I mean, to think that we're the only human form in this vast galaxy, it would be asinine. That we're the only life on this planet. I mean, we talked about UFOs and stuff, but I've heard other people say that possibly it could be our future coming back here, whatever, time travel, whatever. And then with the planets being as far away as they are, unless you were able to warp time, go through a wormhole or, instantaneously. It would be very difficult to travel, because we can only travel, we can't, do the speed of light. It took millions of years or hundreds of years just to get from planet A to planet B. So you got to realize that what our conventional linear thinking has forced us to do is forced us not to be able to see that, there are other things that could be happening where, you can bend things, you can shape things, that it's not like you have quantum physics now where they're explaining things of that nature, the possibility of it, the string theory. So these are things that are just coming to light that have been around for thousands of years. And, to think that we're, this civilization, modern man, if you ask the Native American, we're the seventh generation, the seventh civilization that's cropped up. The other six have figured out a way how to blow up themselves, so, so you can look for evidence all over the world and different, oral stories or history. If you go to the Veda teachings in India, you can look at, how that civilization arrived, and you realize that, a lot of them show, ancient chariots, spacecrafts. They show, people that possibly had spacesuits on. So, and then they talk about, even the stories in the Bible that talks about, Adam, the Cain and Abel, the two brothers, and it's pretty much a parable for Enkidu and Enlil, who were Anunnakis, who, created the test tube human, and it didn't happen. It, took many, many tribes before, a successful species was created. And if you think about the missing link guys, I mean, they can't, can't talk. There is none, because there was never one to begin with. How do you have a Cro-Magnon man and Neanderthal man, on the planet at the same time, and say that one dies off because of survival of the fittest? That's crazy. People just don't die just to die off. You have to have a reason. If you have two different species, it's an apple and an orange. How do you say they become, they become one? They don't.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things, and if you cannot, debate these things with, scientists or people that of thought, if you can't provoke thought in those type of arenas, makes it very difficult to be able to advance, science. I mean, how do you do it?
It seems like our whole system is based on that. I mean, in every shape, form. I've seen some people just go to legislation to try to get certain things set up, like for example, to test homes, new ideas in homes to testing, and they were in court for 7 years before they were able to, and even now they still have a hard time getting the permit. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is just our modern way of thinking is so restricted when everything in life shows us that it should nothing is restricted in life, but we are.
Well, we gave our power away a long time ago.
But I'm an optimist, and I will say that the power is going to return. The veil is shortly to be lifted. It's going to take people who are open-minded, people such as ourselves, to create the dialogue, to put it out there, and it's the critical mass will be reached. It's that 100th monkey, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think that right now, what we're doing right now is passing it on. And I encourage everyone listening to take what they're hearing today, and if you find credence in it, if you find things that have opened you up, to pass it on. Because if we're right here today, we're setting a precedent here on this fabulous day that we're all together, because we're in fellowship for the human race, because we want this to continue. The only way this is going to continue is for us to be able to bring things into the light. That's the only way you could eliminate the darkness, is by bringing it to light.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, we've talked about the 100th monkey a few times on our show, and I've gotten estimates from people, and I tend to agree. I think it was Crystal Clark that I asked where we thought, where I thought we were as far as the 100th monkey. How many monkeys have we got so far? And her estimation was, spit it right out. She said 80%. And
Well,
that kind of feels right to me. I think we're getting close.
well, I've got one for you. We talk about prayer groups. People get together, they pray, for certain things, a certain time, they'll have a harmonic convergence. For example, what I heard recently was that in World War II, World War II could have been stopped if only 7 people got together and prayed on a regular basis to stop the sanity. World War II could have been averted. That's a very strong statement to hear that, but here's my point with that. If people got together now in groups, focus groups, and actually put their intention out, you magnify it, 10 times, 20 times, whatever, and the universe was going to give you back what it is you put out there. Because the universe, they takes orders. You give it an order, a command, or a demand, it comes back to you. So, for example, I command and demand right now that the troops come back from Afghanistan. We stop the war in Iraq. I command and I demand that. I want to see that money come back here, so that way everybody can have health care, everybody can have insurance, everybody can be taken care of in this great country that we live in, to stop the madness. That's my intention to put out there. And you know what? The legislation will come, the people will come, everybody will get together and say, you know what? We just need to have the same thought. That's the thinking stuff that has to happen today.
Yep.
And then hit the send button on your computer, Put the right intention out.
That's that consensus reality.
Yeah, and I feel that it's really happening because I've definitely been part of a lot of meditation groups, and some of them have been really small, 2-3 people. Some of them have been really large, like 1,000 people, and everybody in their own spot meditating on one thing at a specific time and date. And people from all over the world. So the amazing thing is the internet is just allowing us to connect in ways we've never connected before. And I don't know how many times I've heard that said, and I've said it myself. But just that alone is each computer is acting like a what was it called, a positron? A neuron. Sorry, a neuron. Each computer is acting like a neuron, so we're creating this global brain, this energy all around us.
That is right, because here you are in Japan, and Tom's up in Seattle or Washington area, and I'm in California. And right now, we got people listening. They'll be listening all over the world to what we're putting out there, and we'll be touched and affected, and they'll go out like the Apostle Paul did and bring the message home to everybody, where they're located at, and share with them the beautiful things that are happening today as a result of what's happening on your show.
Yeah, we sure hope so.
Well, with that, we've got another hour in already, so that's actually a fairly good statement to wrap things up, I think. I really want to, stress that we have the power, and like Stephen said, it's those groups, those people, and right out of the Bible, where 2 or more are gathered in my name, I am in their midst. So that's there's a lot of truth to that statement.
Well, it's the power of 3,
Right.
You talk about 3. If you do something good, you'll tell 3 people. So I hope everyone here today tells 3 people that they've heard something good, so they'll tell 3 people, who then will tell 3 people, and they'll tell 3 people, and it'll multiply, and then we'll have the masses and the numbers that we spoke about earlier to create the new paradigm that we're all seeking. Because if you don't like what you're seeing, then it's your own fault if you don't become proactive and you're just reactive to watch it happen instead of making it happen. So I like put it out there. Let's make it happen. Let's create what we want to happen. This is an address rehearsal for me or for anyone who's listening. And this is your life. Make it what you want it to be.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get your websites and stuff out again, Stephen.
Okay, we'll start. If anybody wants to speak to me first off, then I'd be glad to do it on Skype. They can go to Sindoni says, SINDONISAYS.webs.com, and they can go there for that. If they want to see my YouTube movies, they can go to youtube.com, Sindoni Productions. If they want to see interviews about the legend of J.C. Brown, they can go to Stephen Sindoni with a P, .webs.com, and they can go there. So those are 3 places we can start with to have people get involved with anything that I'm doing, Tom.
Great. And I'd like to consider possibly bringing you back on in the future and focusing more on the spiritual aspect of what's going on the earth. You sound like you have you're very insightful, and you could have some stuff that could share.
Well, I would love to come back on the air with you. There is a spiritual thing that by September that I would like to share regarding of what the direction is for the planet. And I can't let the cat out of the bag right now, but I was told that there's a message that I'm supposed to deliver, so you guys might be the place I'll deliver it.
Okay, well, as things get close and you're ready, let us know.
Yeah, email us.
We'll see what we can do.
And we need to plan a trip together over to Greenland. You can only get there through Denmark, but it's pretty expensive. It's like $4,000 for the airplane ride to Greenland from Denmark.
I would probably be more interested in just running down to Shasta and taking the shortcut.
Well, Tom, you know how to get a hold of me. That can be possible.
Okay, yeah, I will definitely keep that in mind. We're not too far away, so.
No, I mean, just a shout, and as we see the way the internet and the communications are today, it's pretty easy to connect.
Yeah. So, okay, everybody, well, thank you for listening. Thank you very much, Stephen, for joining us, and thanks, Ramon, and thank everybody.
And thanks, Tom.
Yep.
And make sure you tune in next week. And
we've got, let's see, next week we have Jay Widener on, so that'll be a really good show. So we will see everybody next week.